most architects haven't got a clue. It's dirty being a developer in this country. You know, if you make money in property, there is something wrong with you. We need a system that says if you get planning, you build it. The cost of all this fucking about. Right. If you don't build it, it's gone. Yeah, and developers won't like it. There's a whole load of developers that make money just through flipping sites. If most architects are honest, you come out of university and get a bit of a rude awakening that it's not sort of sitting around and having these fantastic contemporary meetings and tax landlords hire, and it doesn't come out of their profits, they just shift it to the person that's renting the house. I don't understand how those that make policy don't know these things, don't understand why they can't go all the way through the process and go, oh yeah, that will put rent up, won't it? We incentivise landlords to be good landlords, they will be. And then you come down, no compassion whatsoever on those that don't. Those that put people in mouldy houses that are giving the kids asthma, send those fuckers to jail. Come down hard on those and then incentivise everyone else to do a fantastic job.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Neil Scroxton. How are you today, Neil?
I'm great, thank you very much.
Good, good. Neil is the managing director and founder of Scroxton Partners, with years of in-house practice and experience of private, residential, developer-led, and residential and commercial sectors. Neil, you lead consultant teams, you've got construction managers, planning consultants in-house, and advise clients on best practice. Yeah,
and also now we develop as well ourselves. So we've grown to understand as much as we can the pains that particularly developer clients feel. So if we go back a few years.
Well, to go all the way back.
Yeah, all the way back. So
I want to go all the way back, and I want to actually start by.
It was 1981, and my mother was no.
Almost. Yeah. I want to talk about actually who were you at school. That's kind of always where I like to start, because being a Property People channel, really want to get to know who are the people behind these successful businesses that have gone on to do so much. Did you always know that you wanted to be an architect at school?
Yeah, from an early-ish age. I first started working in a drawing office when I was 12, I think. So the first job I did was I drew all of the book of cash and carries with my uncle. And so that was my first sort of job in property.
You drew the cash and carries?
Yeah, so my uncle used to go and survey them. They were moving all of their stuff from paper to digital. And so my uncle went and surveyed them. I had a Saturday job and a holiday job working there, and we drew them all up and just got all their records. And from that, although it wasn't, there was nothing clever architecturally about it, but what it does is it starts to help you understand buildings. It starts to help you understand that things stack on top of each other, certain things stack on top of each other, and that if you've got a warehouse with a mezzanine and the steel structure doesn't tie in with the steel structure below, then you've drawn it wrong. And once you start to understand things like that, that then leads on to, as you go into professional life a little bit later on, it just gives you that base knowledge that you kind of need in our industry to instantly see, if something sticks out, it's not quite right.
So the family member kind of helped you by just getting a little bit of exposure to this, that, and the other, and you just enjoyed it. It all kind of made sense to you.
Yeah, I always loved technical drawing and art. That was my music. That was sort of my favourite things. I was very good at maths, so I had that sort of background, the technical side with the artistic side, and then, like I say, getting that little bit of exposure at the right age just gave me. That was it. I knew by the time I was 12, 13 that I was going to be an architect. There was no. Yeah.
And so the educational journey to actually get qualified to become an architect. So do you study what at A levels? What at university? Did you go to university?
So I went to university. So A levels I did design technology, maths, music. What else did I do? I started off with science and I dropped that off, and then went on to university at Nottingham, and obviously there's a big rivalry between those that go to Nottingham University and those that go to Nottingham Trent. So just to be really clear, I went to Nottingham University, That was quite important for a business partner of mine that went to Nottingham. He will watch this. Yeah, I went to Nottingham University, had the time of my life. The way it worked when I did my qualification is slightly different to how you can do it now. There's a lot more routes through to qualification now, but back then you did a 3-year bachelor's course. Then you take a year out to work in practice. So I went down to London for a year, and then you go back for another 2 years at university. Then you go back for another year in industry, and you're doing sort of exams and stuff on that last year. And yeah, I just wanted to get it done as quickly as possible. Like I've been working in the industry anyway. Beforehand, I couldn't. Yeah, as a family, we couldn't afford for me to go to university, so I always worked through the summer. I'd set up my first practice at university.
Wow.
It was only doing small stuff and generally working for other people and taking the load out of their offices. But I did that to make sure that I had the income so that I could afford to go to university, and then I could afford to go and live in London. After that. So
incredible. So from a young age as well, you've got that kind of entrepreneurial skill to just go out and get money in, make sure you got the bills covered.
Yeah,
more coming in than going out.
Well, I won't go that far, but there's a lot going out. But I think when you're in a position where you know what you want, but you really don't have the means to do it, you don't have the family money or something along those lines, then you learn to graft and turn it on, and it gives you that little bit of resilience and that bit of ability to fight when the chips are down. And this is an industry where the chips go down pretty heavily when they do go down.
Yeah.
And that fight, that want to succeed is there and helps you in those moments.
So when you for many people, when you don't necessarily have lots of money, the security of having a job, somebody just paying you just have to rock up. You don't have to worry about all the sales and the marketing and the financing and the funding and all this. They kind of don't necessarily want to take on all of that stress or that worry. They just want to rock up, make sure that the money's at the end of the end of the month. But you decided that actually at some point you wanted to open up your own practice and go that next step. What kind of motivated you to take that step?
There's a couple of things. So I worked for a practice in London that I absolutely loved. It was my dream job. The people that I worked with, I loved to bits, and they went through a little bit of a change that I, being in my mid-20s and egotistical and probably a bit of a wanker, didn't like. And so I decided that when I was 27, I decided that was that. I was going to go and set up my own practice. So it tied in with my mum passing away. So my mum had terminal cancer, and when she went, I decided that I'd sort of move back home and set up my practice. What I'd kind of forgotten is that I'd cut my teeth in London and Jersey in particular. I was doing a lot of work in Jersey. So I moved back to Northamptonshire. Didn't know anybody anymore. Didn't have any contacts in the industry, and literally started from ground zero. And this was just as the sort of 2007 credit crunch was kicking in.
What a time.
So I went from earning a good salary for a young qualified architect in London. I went from earning a good salary in that practice, combined with all my additional income that I made, on private jobs and stuff in the background, to having to go on to benefits so that I could pay my one member of staff salary and sort of get through to the end of the year. So that was a bit of a shock. But that's what I was saying before. When the chips are down, you need that resilience, and you also need to know that you can get through it. One of the guys, one of my first clients, he sort of said to me, "Do you back yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I do, yeah." He said, "Well, if you back yourself, don't worry about it then. Just head down, get on with it. But if you don't think you can do it, don't do it, get out." And so that was the first couple of years were a bit tough. You learn very quickly that if you sit still and wait for people to come to you, they won't. So you have to get yourself out there. Really, it was probably a little bit before the booms in social media and social media was just for things like looking at girls and stuff like that. It wasn't really for
bit of MySpace, I think, at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, checking out what's your favourite band. God, I know you so well from looking at your MySpace. So it wasn't really a big thing then. I mean, now if I started up again now, it'd be the first thing I'd be thinking about is sort of social media and getting out there a little bit more and how you open up channels to sort of come into you, but you do learn. You learn that you need to market. You learn that you need to advertise. You need to get out there because it's certainly in this world, nobody's going to pick up the phone and call you if they don't know that you exist.
Absolutely. And in terms of the style of architect that you want to be, because from what I understand, that you can spend many years, as you were alluding to earlier, training to become a qualified architect in different disciplines. And then, I don't know, for some reason, in my mind, Antonio Gaudi from Barcelona always just left a big impression on me when I was walking around the streets, very, very like fantasy-esque buildings. And having spoken to many architects over the years, they all, to some extent, have been influenced by a specific architect in the kind of public domain. Do you think is that relevant to you? Have you been? Do you have any architects that you look to?
I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm influenced by all sorts of things when I walk around, and certainly for my training and looking at different sort of architects across the world, and you go to different towns and different cities and get immersed in what's there, and I'm always, architects look up. Everyone else is walking around like that. Architects are walking around like that. So always looking up and seeing what's going on. But I think if most architects are honest, and this is the ones that aren't sort of head up their arse and sort of trying to pretend that we're some sort of special human beings. If most architects are honest, you come out of university and get a bit of a rude awakening that it isn't, it's not sort of sitting around and having these fantastic, crazy, contemporary meetings and then convincing a client that we're gonna build sky hooks and things up in the air. It's not all groundbreaking, and that's probably one of the hardest things for architects. A lot of my friends that came out of university, particularly those that really tried to get firsts, and when they come out and then they get the real world shock, you get a bit of a mix. So I am a contemporary architect, but I do also do traditional work. I mean, there's, particularly being outside of a major city, we've got our London office, but it's only a satellite office. We're essentially based out in the sticks, and we have to do a bit of a mix. Otherwise, we'll go hungry. So and then in that instance, you've then got to know and understand traditional architecture and traditional design, and you've got to understand how it works in context. And once you know that, you can actually then be a better contemporary architect, because you can learn to break the rules and work with the rules to make your contemporary architecture sit well alongside traditional. So it helps to take influence from lots of different places and not be too blindsided. But certainly I think those that have been in the industry for a while, and those that are honest about it, will say that it's a bit of a rude awakening when you get out of university. It's not
probably thinking about all this sexy, I'm going to build all these different buildings, these skyscrapers, or this kind of spaceship that does this and this. And then it ends up being maybe some loft conversions, rear extensions.
So sometimes you end up doing toilet schedules and things like that, and and I think
all very necessary, though. Of course,
all very necessary. It's all needed stuff, but that's not what they teach you at university. In fact, they don't teach you a lot at university. They do teach you a lot about design and about certainly, again, that resilience of, and it's dying a little bit in university at the moment, which I think is dreadful. You've got this whole movement that university should be nice and everybody should come out and have a lovely experience. And do you know what? Actually, in the creative industry, no, you shouldn't. You should be pushed hard. You should have somebody sit opposite you that gives you a bit of grief for not doing the work that you were supposed to do, or not putting in enough effort or not really thinking something through. Because then when you do get out into the big wide world and you've got Joe Bloggs sitting opposite you that's going to pay you, and they're unhappy, you then know how to deal with them. So we've got this really weird situation in universities where they're trying to get rid of, they are getting rid of crits. You know, crits are a really big, important part of architectural education. Or they were when
What's crits?
So critique. So you stand up, so you put your work up on the wall, you present to your peers and you present to some tutors, and basically if you're on a day where there's 50 crits, one of them will go nicely. Yeah, there'll be someone there that the bullshit comes out and they manage to give a good presentation and the tutors are nice to them. The other 49, you get ripped to pieces. You've not had any sleep for a week. Yeah, you've put the stuff up, you feel awful, and you know in the back of your mind, you know that you didn't do something. You know that you left that bit off or you didn't bother with that or whatever. And that's what they're going to get you on. They're going to find it and they're going to get you on it and they're going to rip you to pieces. And you come out of it thinking, Jesus Christ, I've spent a lot of time and energy on this and now I feel... Ugh. But what it does... when you get to the real world, is it helps you. It helps you to talk your way through situations. So when you are dealing with difficult people, it helps you to find a way to turn the conversation around so that they can understand more what you're trying to talk about within the relationship. But again, it gives you that resilience when you have got someone that's just out for your blood in a situation, and you need to defend yourself a bit. We've gone off on a tangent now. I don't know.
The question I wanted to ask to follow that in terms of the clientele that you tend to service for the most part.
Yeah.
Investors, developers on one side who, from my knowledge and my experience, have a specific way of looking at things, and they're trying to find cost savings and value engineering.
Backward ass way of looking at things. I get it.
And then you got your end users who are a little bit more. Yes, they have limited budgets. Some people don't. There's the rich and famous, the high net worth. But they're a lot more open-ended, open-minded about kind of being a little bit more flamboyant about this, that, and the other, and a little bit more relaxed on budget. So. Where does your clientele does it split? Are you predominantly on one side or the other? And kind of which ones do you prefer working with in general from what you've done so far?
I wouldn't say I prefer one of the thing about working with a variety of clients. So we do quite a bit of SME developer led work, and we work with a few I suppose that they would class as high net worth individuals, but for the area that we're in, they have healthy budgets for what they're trying to achieve. But even then, you still need to be careful with the purse strings.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter, even if you're a billionaire, there's still a point where you run out of money, right? So you've got to be careful with that. But the relationships are slightly different. So with developers, you're trying to work more on the commercial side of things. So you've got the creative side that you want to be producing fantastic designs, and you've got to think about how those designs are going to be, how they're going to be accepted through the planning system, how they're going to be viewed by people who are going to buy the end product, how they're going to be lived in. But also you need to understand the commercial reality of a developer.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, most architects haven't got a clue. They don't understand how to stack a deal. They don't understand how construction is changing and the cost model is changing. They certainly don't understand the cost of borrowing and what happens if it goes wrong and a financer kicks in and says, I'm taking this project over. So all of that kind of thing is really important. And that was I had to learn that lesson myself the hard way, and I lost a good chunk of money. But I mean, I was just sort of reading your post up on the wall about failing, and I needed a big fail to give me the kick up the arse to go and understand that, and I sort of said to myself, I can't knowingly let someone else go through this pain. So I learned how to stack a deal. I learned more. I mean, I already knew about construction costs, but I learned more about how construction inflation is changing. I learned more about how certain statistics and things that we take for granted within the sort of architectural world can be used to everyone's advantage to manage a project better. And I certainly learnt about finances and what their buttons are and how to keep them happy. And that becomes a major part of our work with developers. I have convinced people to build a lot less than because they come with hope. And that's the worst thing in the SME world. SME developers are the worst for it. You got hope in the construction, or I hope that this £1.5 million job is going to be built for £1.2 million. It's not.
We were just talking about one case earlier.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. And then you've got, I hope these units are going to sell for 5% more than that. It's not going to fucking happen. Just you've got to work with when it comes to sales, you've got to work with the figures of today, because you just don't know where they're going to go. And then you need to stress test those figures. You need to say, well, what happens if sales go down over the next little while? Also, what happens if they go up? And then you need to cross-reference that with construction. What happens if construction goes up and sales come down? Where's my pinch point? Where am I going to get nailed? And that's the point that you make sure that you explain to your funders. I know this number. I know what happens there and what happens there. I know when things are going to go wrong. And when you start to do things like that, you give people more confidence that you're going to go in the right direction. When you fill it full of hope, with some of the things that we've had, and land agents, God, they're the worst. Land agents who again don't understand construction and bizarrely don't understand their own markets, overpricing land. And you've got all these SME developers that are desperate to do something. They're desperate. They've been to a course. They've gone and spent a stupid amount of money with a training course, and they now have found themselves, I don't know, £150,000, £2,000 to invest, and they're desperate to get on. And they're going to overpay on land. And as soon as you've done that, that's it. That's the rod for your back. Yeah. As soon as you've overpaid on land, you're then trying to cut corners everywhere. And this industry is full of corner cutting, and the reason it's full of corner cutting is because developers have got themselves in a bad situation for the beginning by using hope, and then they're trying to push designers' costs down. Well, great, push them down. They were the ones that could have helped you control your budget. Then they want to push construction costs down. Yeah, push that down, but they're the ones that are going to finish the job for you and make it look nice for the side. Then they want to push costs up. Well, yeah, but they're the guys that are going to come back and complain when it's not the quality they thought it was, and you're going to have to pay to fix it. So, yeah, it's all these sort of things that kick in, and that's a long-winded way of saying that working with SME, developers is a big part of what we do, and that's. The fun is not just the design. The fun is working through and making sure it's a holistic commercial point. Yeah, it's a good project, because if it is a good project, they're going to do well, and if they do well, they're going to come back, and and it's all going to feed into it being a fantastic product for the end user. So that's really where the sort of challenge is with those guys. And then you have got the one-off residential clients, where it is a slightly different relationship, and that's where and really it's those guys that helped us move to a new model where we design and we build. And what was happening was we would design these fantastic designs, then they'd go out into the world, and builders wouldn't know how to do it, so they'd again cut stuff out, be pricing for projects. When you dug into it, there was money hidden all over the place. Nobody was getting a good deal. And so we took a step back and said, well, how do we get what we want, not just what we want, how do we get what our clients want built, but also for a fair and reasonable price?
Yeah, because there's no point in designing something if it's just like, wow, I'm never going to be able to afford that. But then you think, well, actually, someone's not interpreting my plans correctly, and so maybe you're the best person to deliver it.
And so that's when we started to push this idea of architect-led construction, and it is for want of a better word, it's D&B, but it's D&B where you're not trying to, again, you're not using the design element to try and cut quality out. Actually, what you're doing is we're really trying to understand the quality that the client wants, and through the process, we're controlling the contract in a sort of pain gain approach, where we find savings. We'll push them back to the client and say, look, we found you a spare £5,000. We thought it was going to cost this, but here you go, here's £5,000 back, £10,000 back. Then that allows the client to make a decision and say, well, brilliant, I can now spend a little bit more on the the bathrooms, the tile in the kitchens, whatever,
all the sexy stuff.
Yeah, the sexy stuff. Yeah, glazing. So by running it as a pay and gain, inevitably, we know that the clients are still going to spend the same money, that they wanted to spend, but they're going to improve the quality of what they get, and it also builds trust as well. Again, the construction industry is full of distrust.
Yeah.
And certainly from a B2C point of view, we really want to build that trust again, and just get it a bit less cloak and daggers, and and everybody trying to screw the next person over.
So you're kind of running on both fronts then as well.
Yeah.
So you could, I mean, the sense of passion that I get from you from actually talking about the commercial side of it and what the end user is going to be able to benefit from, which I guess to a certain extent it always ends up being the end user anyway.
It's always the end user.
Always the end user in mind, because that's kind of the user experience that we're all aiming for. That's where the value is going to be realized. If they see the benefit from it, then we all get paid at the end of the day, and we can move on to the next project successfully. So you were touching on it as well, the benefit of having construction managers in and around in-house, because not a lot of architects, I don't actually know any personally that have got that capability, as well as planning consultants that they've got. So you're fairly unique in being able to bring that offering to the table to SMEs and to end users.
Yeah, and I think again it was about going through and understanding the pains of the industry and what people are feeling, and like I said, most importantly, but what the people at the end are feeling, and we can. I've heard architects say all sorts of stupid things about design, but you can't deliver a good design if you can't help a client through some tough decisions and help them through what is now a really, I don't know the best way to describe it, but the transparency is gone in a lot of places, because everyone's worried about showing somebody where they make money and how they make money, and most people are okay with understanding that we're all in it to make a penny at some point. They just want that trust bringing back. They just want to know that if you've found a saving, it's not being hidden away and taken away. It's we used to have it all the time that you'd work with a contractor, and there was never anything that sort of didn't cost what we thought it was. There was plenty of stuff that cost more than we thought it was, and it just wasn't fair. It just the way it was handled just wasn't fair for clients, and that was our job, was to try and make it fair within that contractual system. But now we can sort of make it really fair from the residential side.
Do you find it? However, sometimes it's a bit of an easier ride, though, that you just kind of the finger pointing starts blaming. Was that the planning consultant's fault? That's like you're actually taking on a lot more
it's all
effort.
My fault.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all my fault.
So it's kind of like, because you the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
So do you find that the overall the balance of the responsibility and the pressure actually, but then the savings and the value that's added outweighs? I mean, how many years have you been doing it where it's all been in house? How's it going?
A couple of years now where it's all been in-house. But yeah, again, the industry's become very siloed. If you look at the way things work, particularly if you've not got a huge budget behind you, things do get very siloed, where you do your bit and then it disappears, and structural engineer does their bit and nobody really talks there, and then it goes off to the builder and they price it and nobody really talks there. And a lot of that has happened because of pressures on price, because of pressures on fees and the time spent on things, and it's so much easier now because everything's digital. It's so much easier to do something in isolation, then ping it off to someone else and never really have a meeting or conversation about it. And it actually is not any good for the industry. We need to work together. Everyone needs to work together, and it like I say, it happens quite happily on large scale projects because the money's there to do it. But on the smaller scale stuff, particularly if budgets are tight, it's so easy to allow those silos to sort of kick in, and in the end, it then means that you don't get value for money because you don't talk through the ideas. So yes, by making the buck stop with us, we will we will talk through things. We'll have a presentation before something goes to site. We'll talk to the guys and say, right, this detail, this is how we're going to do it, and we'll literally go through it, nut by bolt, by mortar gap, and they'll come up with things and say that's going to be tough on site, and then we'll come, from the design side, we'll come back and say, right, okay, but this is what we're trying to achieve, and we'll talk it through a little bit more, and just plan into it a little bit better, and there just isn't that pressure on the fees running out. The fees running out, we've got to because all we've done is we've just sort of moved where the fees coming from and balanced the books and given ourselves that breathing space.
Do you ever get a scenario whereby a developer comes to you, he's bought a piece of land because he's been speaking to a planning consultant, he said, yeah, we can get you 20 houses on there, not a problem, you just need to get an architect to make sure you can fit it all on there, and then you guys look at it and you go, well, it's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze, this, that, and the other, and then you show it to your planning consultant, and then he finds something and goes, no chance you're going to get 20 on there. And then do you
it's rare to meet a planning consultant that's more optimistic than an architect. I think with the relationship with planning consultants, if you've got a good planning consultant that works with you and understands what you're trying to do from a design perspective, it's great. I think developers have wrongly become too reliant on planning consultants. It's like this thing that everyone needs a planning consultant on a project. No, you don't. You need a planning consultant on projects that are policy driven. So planning consultants' role is to look at the planning policy and to challenge certain policies to get difficult projects over the line. It's not their job to design. It's the architect's job to understand the design issues with the project and look at density, scale, and do something that's correct for the site and the area. And then, if you have a policy issue and you've got a planning consultant working on board, what should be happening is you should be working between the two of you to establish what the argument is moving forward. Planning consultant led design is not a good place to be in. It's just not. It's just not right. It should be policy based. But what's happened is, like I said, what's happened is developers have got it in their heads that they need a planning consultant on everything. So you end up with planning consultants that are, in some instances, literally just filling in paperwork to submit an application for somebody that's a design led problem. And there are lots and lots of projects out there that are just design-led issues. But what developers do is they waste fee on planning consultants in those issues instead of spending a little bit more on design and improving their chances from that point of view and getting a better end product. So again, as with everything, we get into these sort of slightly lazy approaches where we don't really, or the relationship has broken down so much now between architects and developers that they don't talk about what the project needs with an architect first. They talk about what a project needs with a planning consultant first. And we're all going to defend our own corners, but planning consultant really is that their main job is to deal with policy-led issues, not design-led issues. And when you've got a planning consultant on a design-led project, it's just a waste of money.
I know a few developers that have worked with you. Matt Siddell recently had a very successful housing scheme with you guys. What's the feeling of have you done so many now that it's like just another one in the bag, or do you get, because I know the developers, they're like celebrating, like running around almost naked in the street every time they get a planning approval because it's like such a great success.
Yeah, I mean it's always great to have a success, and the way the planning system works now is in many instances is such a challenge that popping a cork is the least you want to do when something goes over the line. But yeah, I mean that particular one, Matt's one was a particularly complicated one where it just went round and round the houses for a little while, and again, the planning system. I'd be really careful not to, because I can rant about the planning system for weeks. The planning system is really, is really not working for SME developers. It's full of red tape, and it's not good red tape. There's different types of of good red tape that make sure that we have high quality
minimum standards.
Yeah, minimum standards. But when when you get into arguments on tiny little points that are in the end irrelevant, just because somebody's got a little bit of power and they've got no accountability at their end, it's killing SME developers, and that's why they get so excited about getting something over the line. And the cost of all this fucking about, the cost of all this stuff through the planning system, and having to produce insane amounts of reports, very expensive reports, before even getting to the point of saying yes, the principle is acceptable. Is just nuts, and so you can see why developers get so excited about getting something over the line, because they're invested. They have a lot on the line, and it's fine if you're Bloor or Barrett or one of the big boys, where you bought a piece of land on an option 20 years ago at prices from 20 years ago, and now you're finally getting around to doing something about it, and you know that you've got all the lobbying and everything, and you're going to get your planning permission by hook or by crook. It's no worries. It's easy. Red tape doesn't matter, because the cost of that red tape is outweighed by the growth in land value between the point at which you agreed the option, the point at which you're actually going to build the house. But if you're an SME developer where you're going out and you're dealing with landowners that want their money now, you need to try and get it over the line somehow. So we get back to the hope kicking in, and I'll find a way of getting you an extra £100,000 for that plot of land. Got all of that going on. The pressure of getting a planning permission is huge. And
Scroxton Partners are a chartered architectural, planning consultant and managerial service provider, providing high quality and sound commercial advice to property investors across the UK. Scroxton Partners have their own in-house planning consultants, construction managers, architects and designers to be able to provide you with a full service from start to finish of designing and even delivering and building a project. Following year-on-year growth, Scroxton Partners have been able to expand and become a multi-expertise service provider. If you're a property developer and you're looking for a truly holistic approach, reach out to Scroxton Partners. We'll leave all the details in the show notes. Reach out to them and see how they can support your next project. The planning, I never hear anybody really talk about how great our planning system is, and it's usually the cause of the reason why we're not building enough homes, and then because we've got an affordable housing crisis, then we've got the whole rental market going through the roof because there just isn't enough rental stocks, they're squeezing landlords. But if we built more supply, then that would hopefully stop rent controls coming in, so that would encourage more landlords back in, but we're just not getting there. And the main, people talk about finance, but I think the general consensus is the planning system. And over recent years, there's been things like permitted development that have come out.
Yeah, our biggest problem is we're an island with limited land supply. And so that's always going to be an issue for us. And we do, when we rightly want to protect our open spaces and countryside. Yeah. And there are certain things we should do, and we should abide to make life and the quality of housing better. However, the system that we've got, it just turns everything into a very, very risk-led for those. It's not commercial. There's no commercial reality to it. So the risk is all on those that are trying to do something. And it's dirty. It's dirty being a developer in this country. If you make money in property, there is something wrong with you, and that is how everyone looks at it. And it's bizarre. Go to the States, walk off a plane and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm a developer," and someone will pat you on the back and go, "Whoa, condo this, condo that," and you'll be a rock star. Do it in the UK. Oh, you're disgusting. because for some reason we just don't like the idea of people making money in property, and that seems to drive everything that we do, the system, the NIMBYism, it's you'll talk to somebody that, and it isn't just the planning system, it's the national mentality around it. It's more
culture
than that.
within the DNA.
You'll talk to someone and they'll say, "Oh, I can't get. Yeah, my granddaughter can't find a house for love nor money." Yeah, right, okay. Well, let's build some houses just down the road. No, not here, not with. I'll have asylum seekers. Yeah, you can't. That's what it's like. And until we start to change the way that we think about these things nationally, and by doing that, you can create a system that's a bit more black and white. You can say there is absolutely going to be no development here whatsoever. No ways around it. No loopholes. No nothing. This is protected, and we can choose to protect what we want. And then we can say, and through strategic planning, we are going to build here, and here, and that will help us start to move forward. If by virtue you can build in a certain area, it removes the policy red tape, and allows us then to focus on designing good quality spaces. And if we get away from this idea of creating policy for good design, I mean that's laughable. That you need documentation to tell you what a good space is. You need to test, you need to try. These little villages that have grown that we all find fantastic and quaint and lovely, they didn't have documents. Things came over time, and if it didn't work, it disappeared. And that's okay. That testing and trying is okay. We don't need to create policy for absolutely everything. We just need to be really clear on what is acceptable and what is not.
Do you think the PD rights have helped, or do you think that because I heard mixed bags. Some people think, the quality of these PD things. It's Class MA, for example, where you're kind of taking shop fronts, so you're kind of ruining the street scene. Yeah. But then these shops are sitting empty as well.
We shouldn't be. We should be utilising stock, but again, that's it needs to be done as part of a bigger understanding of changes in towns and changes in centres of towns and how shopping works, and it's so PDs. I like PD because it causes me less problems. Yeah. so that's why everyone likes PD in our industry. But equally, it does have its problems further down the line, because it is a bit of a broad brushstroke. But it needs to happen. You need to have those broad brushstrokes, and that's kind of what I'm saying before about having very clear. You can't do it here, but you can do stuff here, because it would just allow us to get on with designing things better. But yeah, that's one. That's sort of part of the problem. And the only issue with PD, or the real issue with PD, actually is it's just another thing that pushes up the cost of buildings and land. And I remember I was in a project I went to look at a few years ago. I was looking to buy a building in Ealing, and I was walking around, and this was PD was it was there, but people weren't really on the ball, and I'd realised very quickly that we could convert this to housing, which made it an absolute bargain. While we're walking round, somebody says a little bit too loud, "I reckon we can convert this to housing." The agent pricks his ears up. Literally, by the afternoon, the building's gone up by £1 million. By the end of it, it was just too much to. It'd gone. The deal had long gone, and there was nothing to be made anymore. And the trouble with that is that again, when you monetize the planning system, when you monetize PD, all that you're doing is you're stripping out the ability to design and build quality buildings. So what we really could do within the planning system is, instead of making it possible to get planning on a piece of land and then sell that piece of land with planning, we need a system that says, if you get planning, you build it. And if you don't build it, it's gone. Because that then strips out creating value at the front end and allows you to
interesting policy,
to push forward. And developers won't like it. There's a whole load of developers that make money just through flipping sites. But by doing that, what what you're doing is you're actually creating a bigger problem in the industry by flipping sites and creating profit on before you've even built a unit. You're pushing house prices up. You're pushing the market up. It's all going in the wrong direction.
Delaying what we're trying to do, which is build more houses.
You're delaying the ability to build more houses, delaying increasing rent. It all starts with monetizing the planning system and monetizing PD, and so that is, again, like I said, a fundamental problem with PD, that if a building that was cheap rubbish now instantly has planning permission with not a lot of effort, that cheap rubbish has gone from £500,000 to £1.5 million, that instantly makes those properties more expensive because that needs covering. That cost.
You just reduce the amount of time, because I think PD might be there for like 2 years. Once you get it, so say 6 months, it's got you've got to be on site. But then
I mean the key thing is accountability in the system. Is if you've got planning permission, build it out. And if you want to, if you sell the building on, planning permission's gone. You've got to start again. And that would force. Force units to start to come to market, and as those units come to market, you'd see a little bit more stability in house prices. It's all this sort of stuff would start to kick in. But it's never going to happen because landowners are not going to want to have that scenario or reality. But that's sort of where we're at. We're coming back to that point of there not being enough land. There's not enough land, so it's commoditized. So PD, planning permission, all commodities. And when you've got a commoditized system, that's going to drive whether or not costs go up and whether or not things get delivered.
And coming back to kind of architecture and design, you've got these PD, awkward spaces that you want to make really nice. From an architectural and design point of view, what are the major trends that you're seeing right now and experiencing that you're kind of excited about or maybe shocked about?
Well, from a PD point of view, there's no real trend. Particularly if you look at airspace PD, realistically, the fundamental rules are you just copy what's below and take it up, and that's how you definitely get it through. But I think it's been sort of exciting over the past few years to see. Traditional materials coming back, brickwork and a bit more craftsmanship in how bricks are used. So it's not just a boring flat surface. That's been the most interesting thing, and you can actually get with certain products you can start to be a bit less flamboyant, but still still very sharp and tidy and contemporary, and it's sort of I wouldn't go as far as say it's austerity in design, but you can seeing people do a lot more with simple materials is what's been great over the last couple of years, and I think as a nation, I think we generally do in our cities have some really good quality architecture.
I'd agree. I mean, I've been to many other countries, and especially ones that are fast developing. And sometimes I think we've got a lot of charm and character because of the history as well. And even if you get like a black box on a building, it actually kind of fits in with the street screen and the landscape quite nicely. I think we do, and I think that's one of the reasons why although the planning system isn't very fluid and swift, I do think that we've managed to maintain in some very nice villages, very nice towns, very nice streets. I just think that there's ideally we need, because isn't there a rule in planning as well where if you've got something of exceptional art, like design element, you can kind of almost
So you've got the open countryside is difficult to just pick a plot and build on. So we achieved, at the time it was called paragraph 79, they keep changing the paragraph. But at the time, we achieved paragraph 79 for high design reasons.
Probably so people can't find it again.
And they only happen a few times a year across the country. And there are mechanisms in there for high design, but who are you to tell me
That my design
what
is
is high
great.
design? Who is anybody to tell me what's high design? Who's anyone to tell? It's all subjective.
Very subjective.
So design will always be subjective, and the problem with NIMBYism, is that it stifles change, it stifles design, it stifles getting things out there. Look at the mass-produced stuff. The mass-produced stuff is produced that way because that's what they know will sell. But most people don't know that there's alternatives, or that they could have alternatives. And if they could have alternatives, they might go a different way. You go to places like one of the in Rotterdam, I think, where they did one particular street where they just removed all sort of planning aesthetic. There was a couple of rules they had to follow about heights and floors and plot sizes.
Interesting.
And it just creates a really fantastic, eclectic street that all the houses work together, but then they all work independently, and that's that's exciting. That's fun when you sort of over stifle and start to tell people what is a good space, what is a good this, what is a good that. You just stop creativity, and you stop. You stop people from making mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. The country's full of it. It's full of stuff that we've made errors, but that's okay because we learn from it and we move on, and we'll test again and we'll make it better.
I guess it must feel great when you get somebody that says, yes, this is actually exceptional design, and that must be a pretty good feeling. But at the same time, you might be a bit worried that, okay, the more flamboyant I am, the more kind of that then commercially it actually becomes unviable to actually build this thing.
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you've got to be. But then this is what comes back to understanding the numbers. And as I say, it doesn't matter whether you've got £100 or £1 billion. You've still got a limit. So again, you need to know how to control that budget for your client, and you can still be flamboyant with a low budget. You just need to know what that client wants and work with them and help them through it. So there's no point sitting down with an SME developer and sort of coming up with some fantastic parabolic curve of brickwork for their 5 HMO. There's no point doing it. But so you know your audience and know your market and know your budget. But that's what makes design good, when people truly understand their budgets and truly understand their clients, and then bring in that creativity and well thought out space.
And just to add another element to it all is the trend or the talk of the town across the board, whichever industry you're in, it's ESG, sustainability. But I think in terms of housing, architecture, design, etc., it's become more and more of a thing. And what are you seeing in that side of property investment development?
Well, you'll see passive come through. So passive house, for example, that design standard that's been around for a long, long time, and it's all about as little energy in as possible, whilst keeping your houses warm and getting your orientation correct, etc., etc. You'll see that come through more and more and more. The reason being, it costs a little bit more to build passively. You've got more materials, but you've got less kit. But the key thing is your energy bills at the end of the day go down to nothing. I think something that we're all the way I would love to say that the world is, and humanity is, sort of bright enough to give a shit about the planet and to turn it all off and to make it all work, but it's not, because there are people at the top that want to make lots and lots of money out of us, and so they do that through energy and interest and all the things that they use to sort of make money go up. And so realistically, the only way that we're gonna get to improving the environment and improving the planet is by those driving forces at the bottom. What are my household bills? Right, okay, if I haven't got household bills, then great, I'm not impacting the planet as much as I was. So passive. It's actually going more into the building regulations. The building regulations are turning more and more passive in their approach. But these high design standards, such as passive house, you'll see that coming out a lot more, because residents' house bills will go down to tiny amounts in comparison to what they are now.
And so when you're designing a dwelling, typically kind of right now, a lot of properties don't have any gas in them anymore, for example. Electricity, everyone, including myself, from experience, it is already more expensive.
Yeah.
But then hopefully with more insulation, then I won't need it on as much. And then you've got these kind of X-ray. I've been listening to a developer who's designing kind of a mansion house in the northwest, and he's putting these paintings up that kind of X-ray out all kinds of heat across the room, and it's very efficient.
Yeah, I mean, there's some nuts technologies out there. But the problem with that technology is it's very expensive, and so whereas passive isn't. Once it's done, it's done. So we could fill our houses with X-ray, whatever that puts out the heat. But when that goes wrong, someone's got to replace it. If we build our housing stock to not need the energy in the first place, and we sort of reduce the need for energy to be just what you're using with your devices and what have you, then you're instantly doing something better for the planet. If you then take that and allow properties to generate their own energy, well, now you've got a bit of independence. Now you're not so tied into these world markets that suddenly fluctuate and have you go from paying £150 a month for all your bills to £450 a month for all your.
And then from a developer's point of view, though, all of this extra sustainability elements, putting in carports and this, that, and the other, adding extra costs to all the developments. Yeah. Are you finding from the developers that you're speaking to that they're completely aware of this and they're factoring all this in? Yeah. Or they're getting a nasty surprise?
We're definitely working with some progressive developers that are, and from ourselves as well, developments that we're moving forward into. That's what we're focusing on. The issue will come for developers when there will be a bit of a turning point. There are some really, really good SME developers, and it is in the SME world, it's not in the big world. SME developers that are starting to produce, fully sustainable projects, and there will be a bit of a turning point. That if you want to buy a house in your local town, there's two developments. One of them, the energy ratings are the standard sort of CB when they're finished. The other one, energy rating A, your bills are going to be nothing. Hopefully it's been designed decently. Even if it hasn't, even if it's just designed to look like the same noddy house that's put all over the country, which one are you going to go for?
All day long.
All day long. You're going to pay, do you know what? You're going to pay a premium for those ones. Because the payback you're going to get over the next year or two, is going to be enough to cover off that cost difference, and also you're just going to feel better about yourself. So we are at that inflection point. We're at that, we're at the bottom of the hockey stick, and it's going to go in the other direction because of what's happened with the energy market recently. That's turned everyone's minds. Now the conversations that we have with clients, private clients, are no longer about shifting all the money so they get a pretty bathroom at the end of it. Right. Now the conversations are finally about how do we make sure the running costs are down.
Underfloor heating, can we get that in?
Smart
home technologies.
Yeah. Whatever it is, it's about how do we keep the running costs down, and that has shifted. And I've been asked about sustainability and for years and years and years and years, and I've always said until clients put that first, until that's the first thing that they talk about, we are always going to be shifting the budget to pay for the pretty things at the end. But now, everybody's starting to understand. Now, forget the nuts and bolts, right? Because we can add pretty things in a couple of months' time because we've saved all of that energy cost. So that's if there's one good thing that's come from these energy price hikes is that it's shifted. Mentality has shifted, and I think that will itself just lead to much better quality buildings.
I think it totally makes sense. I'm a big fan of it. I think by 2025, you've got to have an EPC rating of C or above to be able to rent your property. It's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass for any landlords that have been sitting on portfolios for the last 20 years and done. And I think when that hatred that comes from people is those landlords that literally just don't do anything to their property. They sit on it and it's drafty and it's wet and windy and it's damp and this, that, and the other. But now, hopefully, with these new standards coming in, for the right reasons, it's going to improve stock.
Yeah, but again, there's that point where we need to accept the reality. We need to accept the reality that we're going back to a highly rented society. But there is nothing wrong with that. So go to Germany, go all over Europe. They're highly rented areas. But instead of beating the crap out of people for making money, in property, why don't we incentivize people to improve living standards for renters? And that's not done through taxing. It's not done through, because all that happens if you tax them. If you tax, landlords higher, and if you make their costs higher, it doesn't come out of their profits. They just shift it to the person that's renting the house.
Consumer,
I don't understand. I don't understand how those that make policy don't know these things. They're sitting there, let's come up with a new idea that will get us some votes. When I think about those sort of things, I don't understand why they can't go all the way through the process and go, oh yeah, that will put rent up, won't it? Yeah, which will make life harder for everyone. I just don't get it. I don't get that lack of joined up thinking. But yeah, if we incentivize landlords to be good landlords, they will be. And then you come down absolutely with no compassion whatsoever on those that don't. Those that put people in, and local authorities as well. Those that put people in mouldy houses that are giving them the kids asthma and where people are dying young because of the quality of the housing. Send those fuckers to jail. That's what you do. Come down hard on those and then incentivize everyone else to do a fantastic job. Make it a good thing to be a landlord. Make it so when you go down the pub and you're a landlord, everyone pats you on the back because you've supplied great housing for people, and and you're not ripping them off with rent because you're not getting nailed by somebody for tax. It's just common sense, but we can't cope, can we? We can't deal with common sense. We need snippets and sound bites and stuff that are going to get votes. And
well, hopefully with what we're doing here today, that message can hopefully be echoed out a bit further, because I think it needs to be heard more, and I don't think it does go out into the kind of public domain. I think it tends to be in closed rooms where property people are talking amongst themselves, but they're not really kind of echoing that out into the public, and I do think we get a bad rap. I remember when I was an estate agent and doing some property investment stuff between 2001 and 2008, I used to go to parties and everyone thought that I was the devil there, and I was hanging around kind of parts of East London that I am now, where there's lots of artists and musicians and stuff, and gentrification was like a sin basically. And I understand that there's always a cost benefit, but at the end of the day, I was thinking, but we're making better housing. This is like a not a very nice area for so many reasons. There's crime and everything, so we're trying to make everything. We're trying to improve everything.
Yeah. I mean, so that's definitely not to get me started on the artists and musicians that are all stupendously wealthy and pretending to be Labour supporters. Comedians, fucking hell. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Rishi in his spare time will be watching this and the message will get through. but it's we just it doesn't need to be a political thing, does it? It just needs to be about improving stuff and improving, and yes, when you improve something, the price of it goes up. That's the reality of everything. Talk to those artists and those musicians. If you put out shit music, no one's going to pay for it. If you put out good music, people are going to pay for it, and then you're going to have a load of money that you can spend on a nice house. But you're not going to you're not going to give your stuff away for free. So why should anybody else? And it's not about profit and profit being bad. Profit's good. Profit makes the world go round. We can all pretend that it would be nice to live in everyone's equal society, but all that would happen is it just shifts again a few months later. So profit's good, but making profit accountable is important, and allowing profit to do do good in society is important.
I think design helps as well massively, because if you're making profit but you're creating quality products, and design creates efficiencies. I mean, I'm a big fan of Apple products, and I think for me, the awakening when they started making that second wave and that second push, iPod started coming out, and everything was design led, and you saw the kind of success it had and the kind of gratification that everyone had using those products. I think, and then that's why I like this paragraph 79 thing. I think that I would like to see more architects try to do more things that were more design led, to create more fantastical homes that everybody can enjoy, and then maybe the shift might start. But moving on to another question which I had, which is, what is the scheme that you are most proud of designing and why?
It probably would be the butterfly house, the paragraph 79 that we had. It was a big feather in our cap when we had it, and we had a great. It's one of the few times I can say we had a great case officer that got it from day one. In fact, the conversation that we had was, I want to get this thing approved. So that's certainly up there. There's quite a few one-off houses that we've done that I'm very proud of, but mainly because of what it does for the people that live there. Hitting their brief, and and then I got to look back to my old career. Some of the stuff that I did in Jersey along the Esplanade, which was more commercial led. There's some great projects along there. But I'd say that the paragraph 79 is the one that. It's the one that I got tattooed on my shoulder there. So yes, that must be the one that I'm most proud of. But what's quite interesting now about being being a director of a business and having other guys working for you, that you also get this kind of pride through this vicarious pride through the work that others are doing for you. So there's projects in our practice, where that I'm involved in, but not as heavily involved in as they are, and you sort of look over the shoulder and go, yeah, they're doing well. Yeah, and so you get pride in other people's work as well, which is great. So
you're obviously a passionate and successful property person. If you were, I mean, look, the way you speak about subjects, and you're opinionated, and I
definitely opinionated,
which is a great thing. I think, and we need more of that. I think, and outspoken people that come from a place of passion, because it opens the discourse, and hopefully through a little bit of back and forth, we can kind of rise to a higher level of understanding of what path we should be taking to improve things. So, to invite more people into property, what would you say is necessary? What traits, characteristics for a person to need to have to become a successful property person?
You need resilience. You need to be able to filter out the bullshit as well. You can get just as much from paying thousands of pounds for a property education course. You can get just as much by investing in a decent team and sitting down with them and asking them the same questions. But you can do that in real life rather than sort of in a pretend world. But yeah, resilience and just taking your time in the early stages. There's a sort of book by I can't remember his name now. But there's a book where they talk about proactive pessimism. So to get rid of the hope, and by that I don't mean don't hope for things. I don't mean live in some sort of horrendous world where there is no hope. What I mean is get the bullshit out, get the hope out of your numbers, get the hope out of I hope I'm going to be a millionaire next year if I take this strategy on. No, be pessimistic, but be proactive with it. Understand how you're going to move forward, but instead of adding 10%, take 10% off. Go the other way. Keep firing lots of little bullets, and then when you hit that, Jim Collins, that's the book by. And when you hit that, that sweet spot, smash the crap out of it. Get your big cannons out. That's what you do. You just take it step by step. You be pessimistic. You be careful, and then when you've got it right, then you push hard. And do a good job. Just don't think constantly about what's going in your pocket. Think what's going out into into society, and if you do that, if you do produce good quality products, it'll come. It'll follow. The money will follow. It always does. But yeah, you've got to go out there and give people decent products to enjoy.
Neil, thank you very much for joining us today.
No worries.
Really enjoyed it. That's it.
That's a wrap.
Yeah, we'll do a photo. How do we do a photo? Should we just do one like sitting down and then?